This is Ignite to Impact. Hi, I'm Dr. Geneva. Join me today in our conversation with Mitzi Miller, best-selling author, celebrated journalist, and veteran magazine editor. Mitzi gives us insights into how drama series are put together on TV and gives us a peek into production studios. But more importantly are her tips about how to maintain balance and still be so accomplished, which she is. She also gives us a peek into her legacy for the future.
Ignite to Impact.
Welcome to the Ignite to Impact podcast, bringing you people who transform careers, entrepreneurial paths, and communities. We call them leaders, people who are influencers, who create life-changing opportunities in business and in life, for others and for themselves. People who inspire and teach us by example. I'm Dr. Geneva, your host, and thank you for being here once again with me in the voiceover production studios of Michigan's legendary Gerald McBride. Ignite to Impact is all about being influential and using your influence to make positive differences in your career, community, and in yourself. Our guests come from all walks of life, but with one thing in common for sure. They've learned how to unleash their influence for impact in whatever they do. These leaders make things better than they found them for people now and for generations to come. And they're here to share their stories and secrets. And so today, I can't tell you how honored I am to have Mitzi Miller with us. And I'm sure you've heard your name. And if you haven't heard her name, you've certainly seen her work. She is a best-selling author, celebrated journalist, and veteran magazine editor. She also is the only woman to hold both positions as editor-in-chief of Ebony and Jet magazines, our country's premier African-American magazines. And she made a leap after almost 15 years in print media to go from publishing to television and film. And she's had such successes with her pilots, including the popular BET drama series, The Quad. So we're just delighted. She's seen on television all of the time. She has lots of accolades, including Crane Chicago Business Magazine's 40 Under 40 roster. And we're just so delighted. So coming to us here in studio, voice from Los Angeles, California. How are you, Mitzi?
Good morning. I'm wonderful. Thank you for such a beautiful intro. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. It's my honor. And, you know, I'm just going to ask you first off. You've got so much going for you. So successful, such a tremendous career, and a transition from one career to another. You know, your seasons, you're just really developing yourself. And my listeners are always interested in how people who do the things you do maintain balance in your life. So let's start off talking about that.
Sure, because it's important, right?
Yes.
Especially as a woman, it's easy to get distracted and lean one way or another. It's a conscious choice. Every day you wake up and you have to decide how much energy and time you're giving to different aspects of your life depending on what's needed. But I do my best to make sure that I wake up and pray, set aside time for myself and my faith so that I start my day that way. Mm-hmm. And throughout the day, take deep breaths. Because it can all be so overwhelming. Mm-hmm. Another thing that I learned through being the editor-in-chief of both magazines is that it is really important to take your vacations take your time out, even if you can't go away, even if it's a staycation, even if it's a long weekend. If it's time you're entitled to and you can just say, hey, I'm going to be in my house being kind to myself, you have to step away from the chaos just to clear your mind. Spending time with family and friends is important as well, even if it's small pockets, a lunch, a coffee, a dinner, a movie grab with someone outside of the hustle and bustle. It matters.
Yes.
It matters. Because if you are unable to maintain some semblance of balance, the tunnel vision will make it difficult for you to create.
Yes. I love those tips. I often, I've had employees that I've just had to force to take their time. And, but I would do it because I think what you point out is absolutely right. You know, whether you go to some exotic out of the country place or you're just at home around the corner going to movies or watching movies, it's important to take that time off. And so how, Mitzi, did you, now you talked about some great balance, and how did that play out for you as you were editor-in-chief of Ebony and Jet magazines?
Well, that was probably the hardest month and a half of my life. I don't think I had much balance during that transition period. So that happened. That's actually a twofold title because I am the only woman that was the editor-in-chief of both magazines individual at one at a time, and I was also the only person that's ever been editor-in-chief of both magazines simultaneously. The last issue of Jet was produced when I was at the same time that I was producing my first issue of Ebony.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes. My goodness.
So that was absolutely crazy. A lot of running around, a lot of transition. But in terms of while I was at Johnson Publishing, while I was the editor-in-chief of these brands, it was much harder just because there was so much to do. With Jet, when I got there, I was trying to revive the publication. We relaunched the website. We were sort of trying to reignite the brand. And so that I had to force myself, like every Saturday, to get out, take walks. I had to be very regimented, again, waking up early to work out, because once the day started, the day would start, you know? And same with Ebony. It just, for me personally, the challenge becomes if you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work. So then you wind up working all the time. So my friends would sort of like remind me and lean in and be like, hey, you know, we haven't talked in a month of Sundays.
Yes.
We put something on the calendar, you know, and like I would go to church with friends and, you know, you just have, it was challenging. It was very, very challenging. And ultimately that was probably part of what was, that was a big part of what made me decide to take the leap. Because I felt like I needed a new challenge, and I was getting in a route, and it was starting to affect my health. But I loved it. I loved every minute of publishing. I love magazines to this day.
And so you made that transition over to television and film.
I did. I joined Rob Hardy at Rainforest Entertainment production company. And as the head of development. And so essentially my job responsibilities are to identify interesting, complex, layered stories that I believe should be on television or on the big screen, and then work with the writers and the team to kind of pull it all together before we take it out and try to sell it to network or a studio.
That sounds so exciting. I mean, that is
a lot of
really
fun. I guess
yes. So
with really interesting ideas, and a lot of young writers, and even older, you know, people that are further along in their careers that still have a good idea. So it's a lot of interaction with people, which I enjoy.
So take us into the production studio. So we're around the table. Let's pretend for a moment we're all with you around the table. And an idea like the quad comes along. What happens? What happens in the room? What do you talk about? How does it take us there?
Well, an idea like the quad, so the idea for the quad was just life at an HBCU. But we looked at the landscape of television and film and realized that there was no show on television, cable, or a regular network that portrayed college life for students at an HBCU. So we knew immediately that there was something unique and there's something that was missing. And then we wanted to figure out, okay, but what is it about life at the HBCU? What are the students doing? What is the administration doing? How do we garner the largest audience? If we make it just about the students, then it's a teen show. But if we add a good plot line about the administration, now we've got eyeballs of adults that love a good soap. So you sit around, try to figure out how to reach the biggest audiences, how to create the most compelling, grounded stories, because viewers today are so sophisticated, especially compared to back in the day. You can't just put any old thing on TV and they'll be like, whatever, I don't believe it, that couldn't happen. So it really is a collaborative process. I work very closely with Rob and whoever pitches the idea, the writer, or if we come up with the idea, our co-producers. And then once we have the storylines together and our character arcs together, then we may go out and try and find a showrunner for the project. Showrunners are the head writers, the person that's going to run the room and come up with the different scripts for the season. And once we have a showrunner and a concept, depending on where we want to go, we'll take it straight into the studio and pitch it, or we might try to attach talent, like a star.
Okay.
And then we'll take it into the different studios and pitch it.
Yeah, that's some great insight. And so during that process, so what would you say has been the biggest lesson for you in that process about leadership and influence?
Patience.
Okay.
Patience. This is when I was in magazines on staff at a publication, I knew where my stories were going to go. I knew once I figured out the assignment, I knew that they would be published by that magazine. Now I'm not sure who's going to buy the idea because this is more sales oriented. So being patient, going out on the different pitches, hoping that you can connect with the people in the room and that they like your idea as much as you do.
And I would assume that involves a lot of no's sometimes.
Absolutely.
So you get that rejection. And so how do you deal with that?
It's part, I don't look at no's as dead ends. I look at no's as not here. And so I set them as learning moments. I try to find out, anytime I get a no, I try to glean information from it, from the person that's saying it. What was it that didn't work for you? What could have been stronger? How, what are your suggestions and ways that I could pivot and make this a better project and more appealing to the next person? But no's are just part of the game. I don't take them personally at all.
And so, one of the other things that I think is, so amazing about your career is that you're also an author.
I am.
And in fact, one of your books, I guess a television movie was based on this. So you have to tell our listeners all about that.
So I co-authored the book, The Vow, with Angela Burt Murray and Deneen Milner. And it was optioned by Sony and eventually picked up by Lifetime to become the movie With This Ring, starring Regina Hall, Eve, and Jill Scott.
So what was that like? Oh, my goodness.
It seemed like an overnight, like, when it actually started. I wrote the book almost, I guess, 13 years ago at this point.
Okay.
And it wasn't until 10 years after the book was written that we got the TV deal. But once we got the TV deal, things went really fast. And it was so fun. And it was so amazing to see our story come to life. And I loved the casting. I loved that they were able to get Jill Scott and Regina and Eve. They were all wonderful in their roles. It was just really an amazing moment of affirmation that my stories matter.
Mm-hmm. And so for those of our listeners who haven't seen the movie yet, because I know they're probably going to run out and, see it soon or get it a replay with Lifetime or what have you. What is The Vow about?
Well, The Vow, ironically, is based on my own shenanigans at 30. I turned 30 and decided that I was ready to be married because I was 30, and that if I put as much energy into convincing my boyfriend to propose to me, that just like any career move, anything I put my mind to, I could get.
Okay.
And so the story is about three best friends who take a vow to be married within a year. And so they all are involved with one guy, but decide to hedge their bets and get out there and start seeing other people in order to either convince their boyfriends to get serious or meet somebody new. And it's about the adventure, the ups and downs of dating in that window where you're so desperate and it feels like if I don't make it, I don't know what I'm going to do. And eventually what you find out, just like a lot of us that aren't married, is that what you're going to do is continue to be amazing, and that there is joy in loving yourself, and that when the right person comes, it won't be forced.
That sounds like fun. So is it, it's a comedy and a drama and
it's a rom-com. It's a romantic comedy.
Oh, it's a romantic comedy, a rom-com. All right, so we got some lingo, some inside lingo, a rom-com. Okay. So what's next? Are you working on another book now?
I am working on another book. I'm working on a solo project,
Okay.
and I just started recently sort of sketching down notes. My agent has been on my back to get moving on that, and working with Rainforest. In addition, my three co-authors and I sold a movie to BET that is going into production next week in D.C., and it's untitled. It's the Untitled Angry Black Woman Project, and I believe the tentative title is Angrily Ever After, and that will be on air in 2019. So I'm excited about that.
Oh, congratulations.
It's another rom-com.
Okay.
And, yeah, just taking it one day at a time here, trying to sell shows. Rob and I are taking series out to market this week. Next week, this past week, we took a couple TV shows out. Next week, we have a few more. And then I'm headed to Homecoming. So that's the biggest thing for me right now. Getting myself together to head down to Tallahassee.
To Florida A&M.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, I'm on my way next week to Morgan State for my homecoming.
Look, listen, my girl Sheree will be there.
Oh, okay. What's her last name?
Sheree Brown. Well, I guess it's not Brown. She just got married. I don't even know what her married name is.
Okay. All right. So she went to Morgan. She went to Morgan.
She sure did.
All right. Well, it's a special celebration for us because my sorority's line went over 50 years ago.
Congratulations. Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Yes.
Rob is celebrating his 20-year line anniversary.
Oh, wow.
So
yes.
There's going to be a lot going on all around the
I'm telling you. So when I was at Morgan, clearly it was a lot different than it is now, but it is still a gorgeous place, a wonderful place, and the best experience that I ever had. I don't think there's anything like at HBCU.
No, not at all. Not at all.
One of
the best decisions I've ever made.
Yes.
At every turn in my career, there's been a rattler that has opened a door and helped me out, or someone from an HBCU that has sort of been like the battery in my back.
Mm-hmm.
Being part of the larger HBCU family is something that I take such pride in.
Yes, yes. And so many great memories, friendships, relationships. It's all there. It's all there. So Mitzi, tell us, so you've got a book in production, you got so much, going on. What's the future looking? I mean, if you looked beyond your immediate projects, in the next 3-5 years, what's that look like for you?
Everything that I'm working on today will probably come to fruition within the next year to 2 years. So I assume that I'm still just going to be creating great stories because that's what I love to do. What medium I'll be doing it in, I'm not certain. I also host a podcast that I'm very proud of called 70 Million, and it focuses on the grassroots reform of the U.S. criminal justice system. Mm. And I think, I've always been, even though entertainment is where my career is in focus, I have always been a history buff, U.S. civics, government. Those are strong areas of interest. I think with, the midterm elections, the presidential elections, I'm looking to get more involved there when possible. Community is a really big thing for me, family and community. And so, we'll see. I don't know for sure. I feel I'll still be telling stories. I just don't know where and how. But it will be our stories.
Mm-hmm. And so, family, community, I'm right there with you. I think it's so significant now, the times we're living in and the roles that we can play in community, helping make better neighborhoods. How do you see yourself influencing your neighborhood or your community or the world by the work you do?
Well, definitely. I think my career, in terms of making sure that our stories are told, our diverse stories are told, so that people see that we're not a monolithic community. And as an individual, I have mentees. I have an open door policy with anyone that needs help. I always try to make myself available, and I don't say that facetiously. Like, people will tell you, if we meet and you follow up, I will always respond to emails. I will always get back to you. It may not be immediately, but I've never left anyone high and dry because I know there's such power in reaching back. And it's part of my, I believe that it's part of my legacy to help others. I don't know that people will always remember that I was the editor-in-chief of Ebony or Jet, or that I was the head of development in Rainforest, or that, executive producer of the Quad. But they'll remember that I was kind and that I helped someone that they knew, or they heard that I was the kind of person that was always approachable. And
where did this feeling, this drive, this passion, this outlook on life that you have, where did it come from?
Well, I'm a first-generation American. Both of my parents are immigrants from Panama.
Okay.
And so they are instilled the idea and the determination, the idea that hard work is not an option, and that determination and being committed and were necessary to succeed, but also that you couldn't do it unless someone opened the door, unless they were able to come to this country, get into the United States, become citizens, and given that opportunity, I wouldn't be here. So I understand the value of open doors and giving someone an opportunity to prove that they want to be here and that they can be an asset.
Very much so, yes. And you seem to carry that through in pretty much everything that you do.
I try to.
Yeah. And so do you see as part of your legacy this whole opening doors, helping others come along?
I hope so. My dream has, even from when I was younger, my ultimate dream is to get to the point where I can open a home for women that have been involved in domestic violence situations. I just think that sometimes single moms that have been in challenging situations need an extra hand, and the kids that are in those kind of situations, that they need to know that there is more on the other side. So my final, I think, act in this life would be to run or start a center or a foundation for something like that.
That is wonderful. That is wonderful. And when are you going to do that? Because I want to hear about that and support that.
Well, that's not going to be in the next 3 to 5. In the next 3 to 5, we're just going to try and get some more movies and TV shows on the air. One day at a time, okay?
Okay, but that's one of your goals.
That's one of the long-term goals. That's the legacy.
That legacy is so important. What we leave, what we
leave behind.
That's right. How we make that mark, and so that's looking forward. If you look back, and you looked at your younger self,
yes,
what piece of advice would you give your younger self if you could?
Different advice for different stages of life, I think. I think in my 20s, I would have told myself I would have probably told myself in my 20s to date more, to be honest. Okay. I would have said, have more fun. You don't need to be so focused on being at the top of the class. Get out, do more, definitely go to Mardi Gras.
Okay.
Those are the things I probably would have told myself in my 20s.
All right.
In my 30s, I had a really good 30s. The 30s were a good run. There's not much I would have told myself there. Maybe buy some property. But I was busy chasing my career, so I had to take a couple pay cuts, happily, that helped move me forward down the line. So I don't regret not making those quote-unquote big decisions, because it also allowed for flexibility and movement. And that's something. So I think I probably would have said, don't worry about not having all the things that people say that you should have by the time you're 30. It gets greater later.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's the great, and I like how you phase that, because again, you're right. There's, it seems almost like every decade is a new season. And we do live through different stages and phases of our life. And so then the advice would vary per season that we're in. It's all good. That is fantastic.
Because you want to be present wherever you are. That's the biggest thing. No matter what age it is, the one piece of advice that remains the same is be present. Show up. Go to the party, study, work hard, have fun, because nothing is guaranteed. When I was 21, I was diagnosed with autoimmune hepatitis and had to have a liver transplant.
Oh my goodness!
And so there was no guarantee that I was going to make it. In fact, they didn't think that I would. They gave me 3 months. I lasted 18 months so that I was able to get the transplant. But if I didn't, the things I wouldn't have regretted, like I was not going to regret not being valedictorian at graduation. I wasn't going to regret not having a 4.0. What I probably would have regretted was that I didn't go to Mardi Gras, that I didn't spend more time on road trips with my friends. So that's why I say, there's a time and a place for everything. Perfection, the chasing perfection actually winds up at times being to our detriment, because we don't appreciate the in-between.
Yes. That taking the time to smell and enjoy and walk with the roses.
You got to be. You're young once. You're young once. You're mature once. You're old once. This isn't a dress rehearsal. This is our lives.
That's right. This is an on-stage performance.
Exactly.
How you feeling now? How's your health now?
Really good. California's been really good for me.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Wonderful.
California's been really good for me. I get out like everyone should. I have weekends again. So it's, especially for women, we always tend to put our health on the back burner.
Yes.
You only have one body. You only have one life. You really have to take care of it and value it. It's really important. You have to incorporate not just good physical habits like eating well and exercising, but also good mental habits, making sure that you're resting, making sure that you're spiritually grounded in whatever makes you feel elevated. Understanding that, today is your day. This is your moment.
Well, we are certainly glad that you have spent some of your moments in this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure.
Yeah, I just appreciate you so much and am very proud of you.
Thank you.
You've got such a wonderful, you have a wonderful list of accomplishments. You clearly, you're at the top of your game. It's evident you're at the top of your game. I also hear the balance, which I think is so important that you're working on, that you strive for, and that understanding of, really keeping in focus what's important in life. And you've already got your legacy goals. So you got the whole package, it seems.
Trying. I've had some great mentors along the way, and I think that's been helpful. And had people be kind to me. And I think kindness is underrated. I think people, feel like, oh, well, I don't have a lot to offer, so I'm not going to listen. Sometimes it's as much as telling someone, I see you, I'm proud of you, and I'm rooting for you.
Yes.
It's the words. It's being kind. Like, if people just take a moment to be nice. If everyone took a moment to be nice, the world would be a much better place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's such an easy thing to do.
It really is.
It is. Well, Mitzi Miller, thank you so much for sharing your words, your wisdom, your insight, your perspective, giving us a chance to, peek into the production room as things that we see on TV now. We know what happens behind the scenes. So you've just given us so much in this short yet powerful conversation that I just got to ask you to please consider coming back one day soon.
As soon as the next project pops, you'll be on my list of people to come talk about it and tell you all about the journey. I will absolutely stay in touch. And anytime you need me, please feel free to reach out.
Absolutely will do. Thank you, Mitzi Miller. And on behalf of all of our listeners, good luck, Godspeed, and all the wonderful work you're doing.
Please stay in touch. I want the listeners to feel free to reach out if you have any questions or concerns. I'm on social media.
Please, how would someone get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Mitzi Moments. I'm on Instagram at DelCarmen75. My website is www.mitzimiller.com. So please feel free to reach out if you are in need of advice or just want to talk or you have some questions. I may not have the answers, but I can certainly try to help point you in the right direction.
We love that and such wonderful advice. And thank you so much for how you give to others. And we wish you right back all that joy and happiness.
Thanks. Have a great weekend.
Will do.
Happy homecoming.
Thank you. I'm going to have a ball.
Okay. Take care.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Ignite to impact.